Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker-Hagan, and I'm so excited about tonight's show. I have my co-host with me.
Good evening, Dr. J.R. Thicklin, and what a great day to be alive. We have an exciting show tonight.
I'm so excited. One of the reasons that this show was created was to be an informative platform to allow individuals to embrace a larger vision of themselves, to expand their knowledge so that they can do better. If we know better, we'll do better. So I'm so excited about tonight's guest so that he can enlighten us on things that we should be aware of so that we can move on to another level.
You know, you're exactly right. Because when we look at the fact of what's happening in today's society, it is more than just COVID. There are a lot of things that are happening as a result of the fallout from COVID, things that have changed both our emotional, our economic positions in life, and even to a certain degree, people's very convictions. We hear things like people are going out of their mind during this time. Well, the reality is, as much as that's the case, we have to be sober and our eyes have to be wide open to what's happening around us. And that brings us to our very special guest tonight. Our very special guest is a great brother that I met a few months ago, but his bio is impressive today. His name is Dominic Stokes. And Dominic is not only just a mentor, Dominic is a federal agent. He's been in law enforcement over 20 years inside of that capacity. But beyond that, Dominic is a person who has worked with mentoring boys and mentoring young people. He has served with the 1996 Summer Olympics inside of missionary and training people. He has been a vast part of making sure that neighborhoods are safe, but even more so, he has worked on some very, very high profile type of crimes, as well as things that are impacting us right now today. He is a wealth of information. He is by trade, he's not only just a federal agent, but he's also he's an MSW. He has had his work in psychology and social work as well. But he's a proud family man. He's a great mentor, and he's filled with knowledge today. And I want to welcome to Hot Topics for the Soul, none other than our friend Dominic Stokes.
How y'all
Good
doing?
evening.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. You kind of look like my family.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah, so you have such an extensive career, and I applaud you on the work that you're doing and the fact that you're serving to help this world, this U.S. be a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an honor and privilege to serve first in the kingdom yes. of God. Let's be clear what kingdom we're talking about. To be a born again believer serving in the kingdom of God, but also to be serving the greatest nation on earth. It is an honor to serve. And hopefully, if I do what I'm supposed to do, I'll get it well done.
Right. We don't want to do well. We want well done.
Right.
Well, absolutely. Dominic, it's interesting. You and I met on a platform here some months ago, and we was dealing with the fact of, ending this whole thing with sexual trafficking, human trafficking. And we recognize that is a major issue in our society. And it's a symptom of so many other things that happen in our society. And it was very interesting because so often when I've done this work, I didn't necessarily see a lot of men of color doing this work. So I'm always amazed when I see that. But inside of it, I found such a passion about these things because it's generally a symptom of greater things happening in our communities. Sexual and human trafficking existed long before COVID, but I'm sad to report it hasn't stopped because of COVID.
That's right.
And there are a lot of things that are continuing to go on inside of that. Inside of your work, what has made this somewhat of a real priority for you? Why is this particular sexual trafficking, human trafficking, why is that something that you really take a great bit of attention to, and why should others?
Thanks, Dr. J, for the question. First of all, as an African American, my ancestors were slaves. Mm-hmm. And sexual trafficking, human trafficking is slavery. Just let's be clear about this. This is kidnapping. It is sexual exploitation. It is trafficking. It is racketeering. it is a criminal enterprise. And that was at one point in our history legal, because sex trafficking occurred in Central America, South America. Many people hail Christopher Columbus, who was a human trafficker. He was sending the prices to Europe for girls from the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
So this history, this country has a dark history and a dark past, and we're trying to address those issues today, but we have to be real about it. There are writings that talk about Columbus and others like him selling and offering little boys and little girls for useful purposes, for sexual purposes. So, I mean, it hurts me that it exists, and I'm honored to serve in a place where I've been involved in sex trafficking cases in the past, and it's gruesome. It's horrible. It's not the thing that you want to see. It's not for everybody to see, but to set captives free. I mean, I've been in where we raid a house based upon a judge issued search warrant, and you see the kids there, you see grown men there, you see the case started as a passport fraud case. And as we investigated further, and once we got into the house, it turned into child pornography and human trafficking. We didn't know that these men in the United States were bringing in these children from Mexico in this particular case, and they were selling them and creating false passports, and they were engaged in human trafficking. So it's difficult to see, because if you have children, I have children, to imagine that there are some children out there that have no protector, no watcher. And that's why those that do what I do, that's our job.
Wow.
And what is the myth that some people have regarding human trafficking, that there's a certain denomination that's only being trafficked? Because, in Black Americans have only been enlightened a few years on human trafficking and things. It wasn't talked about. It was basically labeled prostitution, but it goes way deeper and way beyond that. So what is the myth that individuals believe regarding human trafficking?
The myth is that it's a bunch of middle-aged white guys in their 40s snatching up Asian girls. That's it. No, that's not it. And here's one of the things that I've learned from being in the criminal justice system and working in law enforcement. Crime has no color. It has no nationality. It has no creed. It has no social status. It has no political status. And what I'm saying by that is that I've arrested people that look like me. I've arrested people that didn't look like me. I've come across people that were wealthy doing dirt. I've come across people that were poor doing dirt. In other words, the bottom line is criminal activity, or let's be real, sin is universal. Right. It's happening everywhere. Every church, every type of denomination, every neighborhood, where there are mansions or public housing, it's there. And the crime occurs, and nobody has monopoly on crime. We can't say it's those people in Nigeria. We can't say it's the Russians, the Chinese. There are criminal acts everywhere, and people that look like every kind of people are committing them. So I can tell you firsthand, it's not those people over there. Look at yourself. Those are the people. That's what people look like that are doing these crimes.
When you speak of that, and I'm so glad for that clarification, because a lot of times when people would think of human trafficking, sex trafficking, our best picture of that was, quote unquote, the movie Taken. The movie Taken, and that always showed us, them being trafficked in another country, those type things happening, such as that. But the reality is that human trafficking is a great problem right here in these United States of America. We see it happening, as you said, so many different ways that people are going about it. Fake IDs, people being brought over under false assumptions, that they were coming to do one thing. They end up being trafficked, sex trafficked. And the thing about it is the fact, when we take it on a street level, a common level, it doesn't look like the movie Taken. it's a whole lot different because sometimes it's happening right in front of our eyes. We don't know who's the neighbor. We don't know what's going on inside of that. So if you can elaborate on that, because of the fact it is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry that is happening right here.
It's a huge industry. It's a Goliath of our time in terms of evil and stronghold. It is something that it's just like the war on drugs. You could arrest drug dealers until the end of time. If you're not dealing with the demand, I mean, the drug dealers, that's the supply, but the economy is supply and demand. The demand for illicit sexual activity is at an all-time high. And I think we fail to realize that we precipitate the demand for this type of thing in our entertainment, in our recreation. The biggest times of human trafficking are at Super Bowl, World Cup, World Series, NBA All-Star Weekend. Wow. We have our biggest operations during those times because people have in mind, I want to be entertained. I want to use people for my entertainment. But just to piggyback off of what you said, Dr. J, human trafficking is not as we have the movie Taken style, but we also have a single mother who is dating a gentleman who's providing for the family financially. And because of that, she looks the other way when he goes into her room at night. Now, see, that's trafficking. This is financial benefit. A child is being used and enslaved. I've heard in my line of work, I've heard horrible stories, Dr. J. I heard a young lady tell me that when she was 11 years old, the repo man came to take the car away. Mom and dad decided to give the repo man their 11-year-old to stop the repo. That's human trafficking. That is utilizing and using, enslaving for financial or other gain, a human life. So, I mean, it comes in so many different forms. I mean, we can't blame this group or this religious group, this religious group or non-religious group. It's happening everywhere. And we have to be vigilant for sex trafficking and other crimes. There are millions of other crimes that are going on right now that we don't always look at. It's not flashed upon the news. Violence against women, violence against children. There's always a million things going on in the world that are evil. The privileges most people don't have to work with, don't have to deal with it. It's not their job. But yeah.
Inside of that, and you said something that's very important. We see these type of things happening for different reasons, and you talk about the demand. And matter of fact, that was the name of the theme of the summit that we were part of, was in the demand. Yes. And if we can end the demand, we can definitely curb a lot of things that are happening. But what you described a few minutes ago might sound very familiar to individuals who, right in their home, maybe it was mom's boyfriend, as you stated, and the daughter's now trying to tell mom, he touched me or he came into my room, and mom chooses not to believe him. But oftentimes the thing behind that is the benefits that the boyfriend provided for mom, whether it is financial security, whether it is, something tangible, a new car, he gets my nails done all the time, and those type of things. And yet it's still, people don't see that as being trafficking. And yet it's still those very type things leave scars on the life of the victim forever. Oftentimes, those very type things cause resentment inside of the victim who is happened to. And so, as much as we use the term human trafficking, and for some that sounds very big, political, it sounds this mammoth type of thing, in which it is. We have to reduce it to the common denominator and let them know that, no, these type things are happening right up under our noses. It's happening right in our houses. These things are happening. And I think people will be surprised at so many things that we call runaways. Think about all the runaways. We talk about runaways and oftentimes end up being trafficked somewhere, these things. So it brings us all to this need to have our eyes wide open, even when it concerns our loved ones, our children, folks around us, because human trafficking is real. modern day slavery, as you call it. It is real, and we have to be abreast of it because, in fact, it could be right next door, and we see it happening more than we see. It's not always broadcast on the news, that a person has been found or whatever, but it is happening. So I definitely love the fact that you spoke to the point of this taking on many different forms, looking many different ways. And there's a thing that we even call grooming, where a person is being groomed over a period of time. They're being groomed through certain acts, certain little gestures, certain things that are happening, which makes it even easier for the crime, as we know it is, or the sin, to be covered up. And so our eyes have to be wide open because of the fact things are happening right before us, and even those that are crying out can't get the help if the people around them don't see what's happening to them.
Yeah. One of the misconceptions is that, men are trafficking young girls all the time. And a lot of times it's women that, like you said, are grooming, hosting, and selling girls off. A young girl is more trusting to an older woman than a random man that she doesn't know. And a woman is less susceptible. People are not thinking this woman is trafficking these girls, but it happens, and you'd never know. And another thing about these folks that we call child molesters, and these are the customers.
Right.
Child molesters, you think of a middle-aged guy somewhere living by himself on his computer on the dark web trying to buy a child. Child molesters are organized. They have conventions. They have associations.
Yeah.
They have resources. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, the kind of work that we do, we're going against people with resources. We're not going against a poor person on the side of the road trying to do dirt. We're going against major institutions. These people have been doing these crimes for decades. They have training sessions. They have symbols. They have safe houses. They have instructional videos on how to groom a young child, how to get and encourage the parents to trust him so that when she tells, they won't believe their own child. So we're dealing with major issues in terms of we're dealing with criminal enterprise. So and we just saw R. Kelly found guilty for not just the sexual part of it, but the criminal enterprise, the racketeering, the people that are paid to keep these girls quiet, the people that are paid to keep certain mouths closed. One of the things is I served in Chicago, and I was in Chicago when the first trial that failed to convict Kelly. It was a failure to convict. They couldn't find the victim. The victim was in Europe somewhere. The father wouldn't testify. He was paid off. Right. And, that means money is more important than my daughter's purity. I mean, that's a whole nother argument to get into, but we failed to convict him. I'm saying we as a society failed to convict a man who everyone knew in popular culture that he was dating and doing whatever he wanted to do with underage girls. So we have societal issues, and part of it is legislation. Part of it is nuance. We have to educate Congress about certain types of crimes. And then the law enforcement piece, we have to investigate not just these type of kids when they disappear, any type of kid when they disappear. A little girl goes, of a certain culture disappears, the whole world caves in.
Right.
When these other girls over here disappear, you don't hear anything about it. There are no national searches. It doesn't make headlines. There are people that disappear every day.
That's something that we do have to bring attention to, and definitely in bringing attention to, we're not minimizing the importance of the search, but we do see it every day. What happens when all of a sudden it's flashed all over our news when there are particular culture of people that go missing, nationwide search, all resources on hand, all those things happen, and yet it's still we continue to see, and I'll say it, I mean, we continue to see Black women and minority women that go missing, and they're gone. They're just gone. There's no nationwide search. The family are making up their own flyers. They're looking for help. Have you seen them? They can't get them on the back of a milk carton or anything else, but yet it's still, their lives seem to be not as valued as much as others' lives are valued. And it brings us back to, once again, our value from within. Our value from within is so important. And I want to make sure that our audience recognize, when we say these things, it's important to understand it's a crime. It's a sin. Across the board, it is. And sometimes we get what I call celebrity struck. We do. We get celebrity struck in our culture because we can't get past the fact of what the person does publicly versus what he is doing privately. That is literally a dark crime. Is systematic, as you said. It's been going on. People have been paid to keep it hush hush. People have been paid off not to testify, and yet it's still, the victim is still afflicted. The victim is still in captivity, and it goes on, and it's profitable. And it starts with power. The fact that you would deal with underage girls, it automatically indicates a level of power and authority that you have over them naturally. But you couple that with financial gain, status, those things there, the victim could still be, if you would, mesmerized by your fame and those things there. And they're being taken advantage of. And we know, we know when we go back to even talk about R. Kelly, there were many different specials. I mean, Lifetime did different one that actually documented, if you would, as much as this as they could. And oftentimes there were still those loyal fans. And don't get me wrong, R. Kelly has some tremendous music. I mean, an incredible gifted man, incredible singer. But if we listen very closely, and many times I can hear a cry out for help, even in his music.
Yeah.
But we tend to want to, if you would, wash that away because we feel like, there you go again, you're attacking one of our heroes or one of our, no. Would it be any different if it was someone of another culture that did that to us? We would be all outraged. So we have to understand the violation, sex trafficking, basically child molestation. All of these things happen, and there's all about power and gratification, disregard for human life inside of this. And you got to stop it. You got to end the demand, because when human life is not valued, and we can take a person's body and use it for sport and for game and to please someone else's pleasure, that is one of the most, if you would, lowest and most egregious acts that we could do in our society. It is the bottom of what we would call a civilized society to be able to do those type of things. And my question to you, and there is a question in this, is that how do we as a people, as a nation, rise above the fact of being such a capitalistic society that anything is open to sale, anything that will bring a profit? How do we stop that? Because this is the bottom of the barrel when we see these type of things happening, and they are happening. And I tell anyone, it's nothing good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. J, I'll tell you, like the Bible says, you can't serve mammon. You can't serve two masters. No. You're going to serve God, you got to serve God. You can't serve mammon and God.
Right.
You can't be so mesmerized by wealth and riches and resources. I mean, the Bible, Jesus was very clear. He said, if you're in church, if you're in the temple, you're worshiping, and a guy comes in smelling bad, maybe homeless, dirty, you tell him, you go sit over there, bro. And another guy comes in with Louis Vuitton on and Christian Dior, and like, hey, you get the good seat. You're impartial in your judgment. You're impartial in your love. And I think what we fail to realize, and we need to realize, is that every human life has value. Every human life has dignity. We must fight for the lesser. Someone that doesn't look like you, someone that looks like you, someone that doesn't believe the way you believe, vote the way you vote. We need to advocate for that life as well. all life matters. All life is important, especially groups that people are suffering here, people are suffering there. Somebody suffering over there affects me. Dr. King said, if there's injustice anywhere, it is a threat to justice everywhere. We need to be concerned. We need to get involved. And everybody has different levels of involvement. Part of it is everybody can pray, number one, about the situation. Other folks can actually get involved, help mentor some of these kids, these young ladies and these young men that have been violated, that had their innocence and purity taken. And don't think that it was a foreigner that took it. A lot of times, most times, it's someone they know, a caregiver, dad, stepdad,
absolutely,
mom, auntie, cousins, uncles, nieces, nephews, family, pastor,
right,
social worker, police officer. It could be anybody in the community that you know. We can mentor, we can volunteer. Some of us can write a check to these organizations that are actively working to take these kids out of the hands of the traffickers. I think we have to have a global mentality. We can think globally, but still act locally. I can't change the world. I can't fix all the world's problems. However, I can get involved. I can volunteer. I can foster a child. I can adopt a child. I can do mentoring. I can do sponsorship for organizations that are actually doing it. Some of us may have a career in law enforcement. Some of us don't. But everybody can do something to help a situation that is destroying our society.
That's a great point, because oftentimes if we reserve ourselves only to be consumers of news and information, and we never become participators inside of being part of the solution, then we're actually, if you would, perpetuating what's going on. Mm-hmm. We don't have to feel powerless in being able to do something. Your words are very well taken when we start talking about whether it's mentorship, whether it's becoming involved. Oftentimes people see the symptoms manifesting in people's lives, but they don't know the origin of it. They don't understand that the young girl that they may be calling promiscuous, you don't know that she was violated when she was younger. You don't know the fact of what has, if you would, triggered these things inside of them. And so rather than sit in the seat of judgment, how awesome it is to be able to have women to be great mentors to those young ladies. How often it is to have women to be able to nurture them. How awesome it is for them to be in an environment that begins to speak life into them, that begins to speak value to them, because the loss of innocence is something that we just don't get back right away. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. It takes a lot there. You talk about both mental, spiritual, emotional healing. All of those things have to take place, and people have to recognize the fact that it's all of our responsibility. Indeed, it is. I can always become, if I allow myself to become happy with my family. My kids are doing good. My sons are strong and doing good. My daughter is precious, but I dare not stop there, because there's someone else who may not have the same testimony. There's somebody else that they're on the verge of, wanted to commit suicide because they blamed themselves for things that have happened to them. And too often we find ourselves sitting on our hands, simply becoming spectators and commentators rather than participators in what we can do. Whether it's, those that can write a check, they should write a check. Those that can volunteer, they should. Advocacy is so important inside of this. And I see it every day. Definitely in my line of work, I see people that have been impacted by things, and there are crimes that are being committed that are organized that people don't understand. Yeah. Earlier, you referred to some organizations that are legal, that operate totally organized and things. I recall many years ago in a special training I was in, it was called IRSTI, Interdisciplinary Rape Science Training Institute. And I had never gone to such an in-depth training. It was like a 40-hour training. And I'll tell you something. I wouldn't want to go through it again because listen, we were there with law enforcement and everything, and listen, we saw everything from preferred molesters to child molesters. We literally had confiscated pictures and videos of things that was happening, and I'm telling you, when it was time for break and people was hitting the elevator, the collective people looking up in the sky because no one wanted to talk to each other. And finally, someone broke the ice and said, my God, that was overwhelming. And everyone just a collective, I don't know if I can come back and take anymore. Yeah. Because what happened was collectively, we saw the worst of people inside of innocent kids. I learned about organizations like NAMBI, North American, Man-Boy Institute, those associations there that if most of society knew what these things stood for, they'll be shaking in their boots. And yet it's still, these things are happening all around us.
Yeah.
Trafficking that are happening. Yeah. We see it happening a lot of times in college towns, universities. We talk about different areas here. We talk about things that are happening. Things that start off as even females working at strip clubs and dancing, it ends up turning into, it just continue to roll over. And because it happens from so many different aspects, people tend to become more acceptable of it because, in fact, to a certain degree, they don't see it as the crime it is. They only see one part of it. And I think that's where we have to be educated. We have to understand our eyes need to be wide open, especially in today's society.
Dominic, how prevalent is it for children to go missing and become victims when they're off at college versus their own neighborhoods?
It may sound strange, but I would think college is probably safer than some neighborhoods.
So once in college, the kids are in college and they become victims. What happens then, and how long is it sometimes before a parent realizes their child is gone?
Yeah, so in college, the very fact that somebody's in college is that they're older. And a lot of this stuff starts happening at way younger ages. I mean, most kids start to be abused around about 10, 11, 12. You're too young to be in college at that age. If you're 17, 18, 19, you have a little bit more sense of self and personhood. If somebody's trying to con you into something, the chances are you're going to have a conversation with yourself and start thinking of strategies and ways to get out of it. I would say a college campus is probably safer because of the community of people that are around you all the time. Everybody is not going to be trying to traffic you. Everybody's not trying to pull you into a lifestyle where you become enslaved and be a sexual slave. And not only that, I mean, if you're in college, you probably have resources. A lot of these kids don't have resources. They don't have alternatives. They don't have parents that can pay for them to go to college. And then this is an issue because the molesters are not targeting well-to-do families. They're targeting the lower income. They're targeting folks that don't have other options, that don't have other alternatives. I mean, when you think about criminal enterprise and a gang is a replacement for family. Right. If family was functioning, there would be no use and no need for a gang. The only reason why a gang exists is because there is no family. These people are lost souls. For whatever reason, they don't belong anywhere. They feel like they're purposeless. So they join a gang and then they become a member of something, a member of some sort of family. Now, what do I have to do to stay in this family? Well, I got to sell my body. Well, I guess that's what I got to do to have this family that is a sense of protection. People willing to take the risk, give and take, quid pro quo. I'll do what I have to do to get my needs met. But Dr. J, is one thing that came to mind when you were talking about these organizations. There was a company, and this I learned, when you work in this line of work, you see things that the average folks don't see.
Right.
So we know what a sex doll is. And there was a company that was making sex dolls. Well, the company found out that if they could make sex dolls that are younger, toddler, and infants, they could make a whole lot of money. Wow. So the company was based out of Europe, and they started selling infant and toddler sex dolls. Their reasoning was we're saving lives of young children from being molested because the child molesters are buying infant and toddler sex dolls to perform their duties or their pleasures with these dolls. The problem is that's not the case. The children are more susceptible to being kidnapped and molested and raped because a behavior is being normalized by a company that's trying to make money. So we basically had to educate Congress about making these dolls illegal, because prior to legislation, it wasn't illegal to have them. It is now. But we were a part, I'm a part of an organization that informed Congress that this is a thing. We need a law to make having an infant or toddler sex doll illegal. So a normal person would never hear about that. They're not going to talk about this on the news.
Right.
But it's for an audience of people that listen. And who's the enemy? The enemy is money. The company wants to make money. That's why they're doing this. You know, there are things like that. You know, we have been educating Congress and the White House about fentanyl for 10 years before it became illegal. You know, the body count had to get high enough, and the demographic of the body count had to get wide enough for Congress to say, okay, synthetic opioids are probably going to be a problem, so let's make fentanyl illegal. Prior to that, you could have a bucket of it and sell it and mix it with people's, you know, heroin and morphine, and nobody would know. The thing about this synthetic opioid of fentanyl, it's a elephant tranquilizer. 3 grains of it is enough to kill an adult, and you can't tell the difference between it and salt or sugar. But 3 grains is enough to kill you. That's why you see these deaths, these overdoses happening. They don't understand that fentanyl is basically a death sentence. I mean, the people that have been doing drugs on a regular basis, you get the wrong drug dealer who's using it to make their drugs more powerful, can wipe you out. One shot. So
and all up under the mighty name of greed, the dollar, the demand, those things are happening. And that's been the interesting thing, that even in the midst of this pandemic that we're in, we don't seem to see a decline in crime and these type things. And as a matter of fact, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sex trafficking, whether it's the drug overdose and usage, it tends to have been going up, because I think adversity in people's lives, oftentimes, you and I, we can speak to the fact, if they don't have a foundation that is strong, that is spiritual, that is there, they are seeking for whatever, you know, they're seeking, and they find themselves in these type of things that ultimately destroys. I mean, it destroys. Family of burying people with overdose. I recently was in an emergency room there with a nephew of mine, and I will never forget, in less than an hour, you've had 2 other people to come in, a young lady being escorted by, I can't say was it her boyfriend or who he was, but what I could tell you, at 5 a.m. in the morning, he brought her in. She could barely stand up and everything. And he said she needs help. And she was like saying, help me. I overdosed. I took what? I can't breathe. And I'm watching this, I mean, parading in and out in that amount of time. And what you realize is that we have a sad situation going on here in society. That even in the midst of a time where we would think that we'd be protecting ourselves, trying to do all that we can with this, people are still looking. They're trying to find some normality. They're trying to find a new norm. They're trying to do these things, and they're overdosing. I've watched this happen in the emergency room. People come and dump people in front of the emergency room and keep going. They've overdosed. You take care of them. And so often we're seeing it's opiate. These things are happening, and it's a different world, right, today than it was. Is it not a different world than it was when we had the crack epidemic?
Well,
now when we had the crack epidemic, we just arrested everybody and we criminalized it, and we said lock them up. It sounded like an anti-Hillary rally. Lock them up. But it's funny with opiates, we just dump money and say we got to do something. Now, one is no less than the other. We understood that this had to happen. But the social, economic, the impact on our society as a whole has been devastating because it wiped out a certain group of people. It made a lot of families homeless. A lot of fathers and mothers end up in prison for long prison terms.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them went to jail, and they had a problem. They had a drug problem. My problem is today we got opiate going on, and it's not lock them up. It's pour up, open up the bank, let's help them, which we should have been doing that with the crack epidemic.
Yeah. I think our time is a little bit, we're recognizing that mental health is an issue. We've seen with the pandemic, domestic violence has gone up, homicide has gone up, fraud has gone up. I mean, people have been locked up in their homes for a couple of years. Divorces have gone up. You know, people have been losing their minds and losing their sense of self, and they're not out among people. People are doing things online, but people are having a really hard time. I mean, the CARES Act, we've had to create various sections for investigation with PPP loan fraud.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is unbelievable how much, you know, when a crisis comes, the mind, which
how
is
intelligent people are.
Intelligent if they use their powers for good.
Yes.
But some people are not going to. Now, let's be clear. It's not the majority of the people that are doing
right.
this. It's only 3 to 4% of the population that are rapists, molesters, you know, thieves, people doing all kinds of fraud. It's not the majority of the people. The majority of people are good. I mean, I'm not jaded. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. I mean, I don't think the majority of the people are criminals, but the ones that are jeopardize the peace and stability of everyone. You know, they disrupt and challenge our whole financial infrastructure to the point where if these people are left unchecked, they could destroy our society. And that I guess that's job security for those in law enforcement, because crime never ends, evil never ends, crime never sleeps. There's always somebody out there committing crimes. But I think we need to have an approach where we're all on the same side against crime. We're all trying to, even if you're not wearing blue, even if you're not enforcing the law, you are wary of the facts that there's criminal activity going on. And if you see something, you got to say something. You can't turn a blind eye or a deaf ear. You know, Dr. J.
Say it's not my problem.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, it will be your problem because it's going to affect someone that you love.
Yes. Dr. J, one of the people that inspire me so much is Job. And when we talk about Job, people talk about him suffering. I like to dig deep into his life and look at, you know, the middle of that book. Job said that he broke the jaw of the oppressor to release the oppressed. Job was not only the wealthiest man in town, he was about justice and he was involved. He said they ate at my table. He said he put clothes on the naked. He said he clothed the naked. He broke the jaw of the oppressor. He was out and about looking for discrimination, looking for oppression, looking for abuse, looking for trafficking, slave. He was out and about. He wasn't on a golf course somewhere. He wasn't on the beach sipping Mai Tai. This guy was involved in the community. They knew him when they saw him. The Bible says that the men shut their mouths. They put they put their hand over their mouth because someone of such stature, wealth, he was on the side of righteousness and on the side of justice. He got involved. And that's one of the things I love about him is that, yes, he was successful, but yes, he cared. People could care less about how much you know until they know about how much
you care.
Yeah.
That's right on.
And that's where there's a shortage, and everybody's for me, myself, and I, when it takes a village. Growing up, I remember getting in trouble at school, and not only would you get it from the teachers, now you can't lay hands on the kids. You would get it from the teacher, and then you would get it when you got home. And then if you act out in the neighborhood, one of the neighbors could actually beat you, and the parent would be okay with that. I'm like, this child
Absolutely.
abuse. But this is how that village raised a lot of us, and it didn't do us bad because, we all turned out okay, getting paddled from other people. But now society has changed where everything and anything goes. And then if you do touch someone's child, then you're liable to get sued. So it's just a revolving door. They took prayer out of the school. It's a revolving door. Now you replace prayer with law enforcement, with guns at the schools. So I mean, I'm tired of turning on the television and seeing our children being killed, slaughtered by other students, and then everybody's pointing a finger at everybody else. But the thing is, we all need to be involved. We all need to participate. Edmund Burke said, even prevails when good men and women do nothing. We need to stop just sitting back, looking, saying, oh, I'm glad it's not me, because one day it will be you.
Dominic, you've been doing this for a while, and one of the things that I felt that is incredible, because one of the things that you've said is the fact, you have an occupation. We all have different occupations that we do, and how we interwove our faith inside of what we do. One of the things that you constantly spoke to, you start talking about the kingdom agenda. You talked about what brings, if you would, glory back to the situation. And so even when you're out there, whether investigating crime or being a part of things, you're always having to imagine really the end result. How would the healing here? How would this bring glory? How would rescuing these people out of this situation? How would it do so? And I said that, I prefaced that to be able to say to the audience is that when we take an attitude, an approach, or whatever we do it to bring a greater honor to something else. It'll change the way we do things. It'll change why we do things. It'll change our perspective inside of how we do things. And I know inside of doing this work, you've had some testimonies. There are some good things that have come out of it. And I'd like for you just think of something that you can share on some good things that came out of, going that extra mile, some good things, because it's not all bad. There's some good things that have happened.
There are good. And I think we are commanded to see the good and to celebrate the good. When he said rejoice, that wasn't a suggestion or an admonishment. That was a command.
Yeah.
Right. I think we have to be attracted to the good that God is doing in the midst of drama, in the midst of crisis. I arrested a man for embezzlement. And the person that I arrested, he was already in jail on other crimes. I arrested him, took him to jail. Then I had to take him from one jail to the next jail. I had to take him from a state prison to a federal prison.
Wow.
But one of the things, when I first arrested him, he was a drug addict, strung out on the street. He was skinny. He was frail. When I went back, I want to say maybe 6 to 8 months later to take him to the federal prison, I didn't recognize him.
Wow.
His face had filled out. He spoke different. I was like, this is you? He said, yes, I have 3 meals a day. I have health care. I'm not using drugs anymore. And this guy named Pastor John comes every Thursday and tells us about Jesus. I got my GED. I got baptized. I got filled with the Holy Spirit. I'm like,
wow.
So you're telling me the Department of Corrections corrected something? It happens. It is real. Sometimes, I pray that it doesn't take jail to get your life right. Yeah. But jail has helped a lot of people get their life right. You spend a lot of time by yourself.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people getting their life right in jail. There are a lot of people praying. Sometimes they come out Muslim or they come out, whatever. They come out with some source and some strategy for their life. I'd rather you come out as something, even if you don't believe what I believe. I'd rather you come out believing in the love and humanity and doing something healthy and structured for society. You know, I used to think that people go to jail to learn how to be a better criminal. Now, and sometimes
university, right?
But there are testimonies. I was actually at an airport. This is a funny story. I was at an airport and my wife and I were taking a flight to London. And this lady comes up to me and hugs me. And at first, you know how you know someone, but you don't know from
right.
where?
Yeah.
And she might be watching this program. I don't know. But I hugged her and I looked at her. She was like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I was like, right when she said that, I remembered I had arrested her.
Oh my.
For some felonious acts.
Wow.
And it wasn't pleasant. My dealings with her were not pleasant. But she hugged me because she knew that even when I was dealing with her on her worst day, I gave her dignity. I gave her respect. I was a part of a healing and corrective time in her life. And she attributed, she recognized that I was the hand of God or the force of God in her life. And I think people know when you're treating them right and when you're not treating them right. People know when you're being extra and when you're doing unto them as you would have them do unto you. When I take somebody into custody, taking somebody's freedom is a big deal. It's serious. It's not easy for them. It's not a great day for them. And I mean, I have compassion. It doesn't mean you get off scot-free. Everyone must deal with the justice that's coming. If you sow a seed, you're gonna bear the fruit of that seed. You know, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Now, as a reaper, when I come to get you, I'm gonna make sure everybody is safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm a nice guy. I'm the nicest one in my group.
You're the nicest reaper they could be, right?
I won't be smiling. I won't be wearing a suit, but just pray I don't have to come after you. But if I have to come, I'm going to treat you as if I'm going to be arrested tomorrow, and the exact treatment that I give to a criminal, regardless of what he or she has done. All these criminals are innocent until proven guilty. And it's not my job to decide. It's the jury. It's the justice system to decide whether they're guilty for their crimes. My job is to bring them into custody and let them have a conversation with the judge. And we're going to do it safely.
One of the reasons why I'm glad that you're here on the show is to shed light, because people feel that all law enforcement are dirty. There's no good ones, and they take the brunt of watching what someone bad did and place it on good guys like you that are just doing your job, nothing personal, but you did something and you have to reap for what you sowed. As that, so I'm glad that you're able to come on the show so that people can actually hear someone who has the heart of the Father. To say, you know, this is how this is done, and my heart bleeds for you, and I know you can do better because you can be better. Just like whatever you're doing in those streets to make that dollar, you can do it legally. So I'm glad and so thankful for you joining us tonight on the show. We thought it was very important to bring this to the community because we're hearing so much negative things about law enforcement, and they are not all bad.
That's right. Yeah, I like I said, I've been in the business for a long time, and I have never met someone in law enforcement that didn't have integrity. I've never met them. Now, I mean, obviously we know that they exist out there.
Yes, we've seen
everybody, and I've dealt with folks of all colors, all creeds, all political affiliations, statuses. All the law enforcement folks that I've met from DC to Chicago to Miami to Fort Lauderdale to Detroit, they've all been upstanding, respectful individuals. I've never seen anyone violate somebody's civil rights, you know, punching somebody while they're handcuffed, putting their knee on their neck. You know, I've never seen, you know, shoot somebody saying, "I'm going to tase you," and then shoot them. Never seen that. When we see good officers, good agents, when we see stuff like that, it just breaks our heart because we take this very seriously. Force is something that we don't take lightly. Taking a human life or taking someone's freedom, it's a serious business. I mean, the only reason why we would do that is to protect the innocent. We have to stop evil, or else it could take us all out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it is so refreshing, and I'll say this to you: it is refreshing for people to see this side of it. Now, let's just be quite frankly. I thought it was a crazy notion to hear people say defund polices and all that, and I think they meant something different. Because I'll tell you something: if something happened outside my home or whatever, I want to be able to pick up the phone. I want to know if law enforcement is there. Okay, I don't need to call the librarian. I need law enforcement.
Yes, yes.
I need law enforcement. So I just understand they have a job to play. I do also understand that their job is to enforce the law, but I do believe that it's the people's job also to be information, to inform. When things are happening. So we go back to eyes wide open. We have to keep our eyes wide open. We know there's a street code that's what is snitches get stitches and these type
Don't be a snitch, but you see something, say something.
Absolutely, we have to go.
We
to
must
that
say something. We have to participate in our rescue. We must, absolutely must.
Right, absolutely.
We have to all care. We have to be involved. We're not just here we're here in the community. If you see a child being violated or you see something suspicious, don't just wait for something to happen and then get on TV on the interview and be like, yep, I always knew someone right. I saw the way he treated her. I heard the screams. I knew. Get involved.
Yes.
Right.
Get involved.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this has been very fruitful. This has been wonderful.
We absolutely have to have you back because I didn't get a chance to say a lot because my computer was acting up. And I was like, oh no, what's going on? And I was praying, but I was watching it on my phone. And so I thank you so much for carrying on, Dr. J. But we must absolutely have you back because I'm sure the audience has some questions and we'll be able to engage them in the next time you comes because I know they have questions they want to ask. And I thank you so much for being who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Much love.
Well, this has been another Hot Topics from the Soul. If this show has been a blessing, please pass it along. It can save someone's life, even yours. Good night. God bless. Until next Tuesday.
Okay. Take care.